So anyway, yeah, let's start.
Okay.
You.
Very good. So we are recording, and my name is Keith Spiro. This is Communicast. It's the story of good people doing great things. With me today is Sandeep Das, who is going to be at East Meets West. He is a tabla player. He's internationally known for his music, his humanity, and the fact that he, like I, care about community and people. So welcome.
Thank you, Keith. Good morning, and good morning to all your listeners.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So one of the things that caught my attention in looking at your background and resume is that you got to play with Yo-Yo Ma. And,
yes,
you know, he also has such a good reputation of humanity, of what he does and how he cares and gives back. So what was your first experience where you realized more than just a musician, life for you was impact on kids and future generations?
So, I personally say that he's the greatest human being that I have met. Cello is just an excuse to make him human. It's like, oh, what does he do? Oh, he plays the cello, but cello is, of course, a very integral part to who he is. But for me personally, the greatest human being. The first time I met him was a debut concert with him and the New York Philharmonic almost 21 years back. And the best part was that I didn't even know who Yo-Yo Ma was. I had played with at the Lincoln Center, but I would come and play Indian classical concerts. So I walk into this rehearsal. First of all, I have never seen so many people on stage because, Indian classical music, the most number of people you have is 4 at any given time. And so my first thought is like, wow, why so many people? As I'm settling down, a woman comes up and puts some metal something in front of me. And I'm like, what is that? And she says, oh, that's a music stand. Before I could react to that, another woman comes up and puts some pieces of paper on that. And I'm like, oh, what are these? And she says, that's your music. What came out of my mouth was, oh, but that's blocking my view. So I come from a tradition where we don't read music. We don't have rehearsals. We don't have music stands. So here I am suddenly with the New York Philharmonic, and the piece that I'm supposed to play is like 28 minutes long. So there is this pin drop silence on stage that, we have flown in this big fool all the way from India who can't read music. And, there are 4 world premiere concerts lined up 2 days from then. So they all look at me. Kurt Masur is the conductor, and there is silence. I raise my hand and I say, well, if you guys play it once, I will memorize it. First of all, I didn't know that you don't tell the New York Philharmonic when to play, when not to play. And the piece was 28 minutes long. And this is when this man, which I at that time thought was like, wow, that's a big violin. He stands up and he goes to Kurt Masur and whispers something into his ears. And then he turns towards the orchestra and says, I know these Indian musicians, they do weird stuff. Why don't we just play for him? And I was like, oh, I like that guy. So that's it. I look at him and I'm like, wow, I like that guy. They play the music. And the moment they are done, I raise my hand and I say, yeah, I'm ready. Again, a huge, disbelief in the air. It's like, oh, really? You have memorized, you have gotten this piece in one playthrough. And I joined it and I played. End of the first rehearsal, I'm on a break. I'm sharing a room with the principal violist of the New York Philharmonic. I go up to her and I'm like, excuse me. And she's tuning her viola and she's like, yes. I'm like, that man with the big violin. And she looks at who I'm pointing at. She's like, oh, cello? I said, oh, that's a cello? She says, like, yes. I said, yeah, that man, is he really famous? And she's like, Yo-Yo Ma? And I'm like, yeah, he played so well. It touched my soul. Is he really well known? She actually thought that I'm just pulling her legs till I repeated that same
Right.
question the third time. I said, the moment he touched his cello, I could feel something inside.
Mm,
Is he well known? She almost dropped her viola and she said, "That's Yo-Yo Ma." Yes, he's very well known, And so that was the beginning. And I will quickly say what happened after the first world premiere, and I will
mm,
shut up. That was the beginning of the friendship that I still enjoy.
right.
End of the first concert, he and I and the other musicians have been invited to a dinner that is being hosted by important people of the city of New York and all that. I'm in my dressing room about to leave, and as I'm getting out of my room, Yo-Yo crosses that room and he says, "Oh, you are still here? If you give me 2 minutes, I will walk with you." So I'm like, "Yes." So I wait for him. He comes out from his room with the cello on his back, his concert suit in one hand. I have my tabla case, to drag, and a backpack with an extra tabla. Before I can react, he has picked up my tabla case. I am dying of embarrassment because from where I come from, there is a very clear hierarchy
Mm,
system. If I am with a maestro, if I am with a senior musician, I rather would offer to carry something for him.
right.
There is no way that he would even offer to carry something for me, leave alone pick it up. So he picks it up and he's walking, and I try to request it back, and I say, yo, please, please, will you give me my tabla case back? And he's like, why? Why? I can't carry it. And he doesn't stop. We are now on the sidewalk in New York, where, of course, 10 people stop him every few yards to get an autograph. This is pre-cell phone days, so
Mhm,
thankfully no
right.
selfies, but autograph. So he keeps the tabla case down, but before I can grab it, he picks it up again. And I am being very honest, Keith. I'm dying of embarrassment. I'm like, oh my God, I will never forgive myself. As we reach the restaurant, he keeps the tabla down. He turns towards me and he says, "I see you have a problem with me carrying your instrument. Why is that?" So then I look at him. I'm
Right.
like, oh, thank God, he's ready to talk. I say, where I come from, in our culture, there is a problem. I'm trying to
Mhm,
explain in as many words. In our culture, there is a problem. We don't let our senior musicians carry stuff for us. And he goes, "Oh, that's very sweet. That's very nice." He puts an arm on my shoulders. I'm like thinking, okay, now he's going to give me my instrument back so that I at least carry it into the restaurant. And then before I react, he goes, before I can pick it up, he said, "But I also have a problem." So I look at him, I'm like mortified. I'm like, oh, he's going to say you're so, uncourteous, you're so, uncultured or whatever, disrespectful. He's like, "But I also have a problem." And I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "In our culture, we don't let our youngsters carry anything." And before I even realize what he said, he just picks up the tabla, walks into this room where people are standing up, applauding him and welcoming him. And so that's the yo-yo I met
Yes.
21 years back. And that's the yo-yo I have seen for 21 years. The humblest, nicest, and caring, genuine person. You can fake being nice, you can fake being humble for a day, maybe a year, but not 21 years where we have flown, slept, late flights, whatnot. He's always been like that. And I will say very honestly, my father, my guru, shaped me into who I am today.
Mm,
But if I hadn't met Yo-Yo, I would probably still remain a good musician first and a good human being after. But meeting Yo-Yo has made me understand that how being a good human being first absolutely is more important than anything else about who we are. So with that, I'll shut
Thank you. So
up.
I'm only going to add to the compliments here because that's what I see in you, Sandeep, is the humanity of it. And the reason I wanted to do this interview conversation to get to meet you before the concert was when I
Yes.
went on your website. It's about the Tabla School taking lessons. And one of the two videos that you have posted is from the Boston Museum, Boston Children's
Mhm,
Museum concert. And there's a now, or at the time that this was recorded, a 9-year-old
mhm,
who started taking lessons from you when he was 5.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And something about your face, the way you went into that video with him, done by third party, obviously, you guys were there, and your care and concern, and the fact that you were having so much fun. And that's when I called them up and said, I'd really like to talk to him.
Aw,
Let's
so
do this
sweet.
because I see in you that same sense of humanity, of being good to others. And you talk about pre-cell phone. And that's a lot of where I've gotten involved. It's the whole
Mhm,
technology can deliver things faster,
mhm,
not necessarily better, and certainly
mhm.
not curated. And it
Yeah.
takes the human mind to intervene and say, this is good for another person. And
Mhm.
so it's a wonderful thing. And seeing the school and seeing the pictures that were there, it just says a lot to me about who you are and what you do. And so very much appreciated. So what you
Thank
see
you.
in him is why I reached out to you, because I see the
No,
same.
thank you so much. He has been, as I said, if I hadn't met him, I would still be a decent guy.
Good.
My wife would still tolerate me, probably not kick me out as she has tolerated me all these years, and I would still have the same friends. Uh, but meeting Yo-Yo really, really, really made me wake up. Especially I would say almost 15 years back or 16 years back, I was with him in Chicago, and we were walking to this very, very important press conference where Yo-Yo would always, Yo-Yo always takes me to press conferences if I'm around as one of his friends, always without a fail. If I'm around, I'm stuck. I have to go to the press conference with him. So we are walking there, and he shares with me, he says, Sandeep, I just found out from the mayor of Chicago how, I don't remember the percent, but only like a very little percentage of kids make it to high school. And if I am alive, I cannot just let this go on. I have to make a difference. He said that. And we started our program called Silkroad Connect, where we would go into schools.
Yes.
That is when we do the press conference. We were in residence for a year in Chicago, where we went into really impoverished areas and worked with kids there. And my question in my head was, what am I doing? That's when I suddenly started questioning myself, maybe 15 years back. Yeah, it's like, okay, that's great. I love him. I love being with him. I love doing things with him, touring, getting into schools and all that. What am I doing? That was my biggest question. And I'll be very honest, Keith, I couldn't sleep. I got into the flight, went back to India, and I started feeling very selfish. It's like, yeah, I trained in music 12 years. I started playing. I have been able to do whatever I'm doing. But at the end, I'm just leading a very selfish life.
Mm,
I'm not giving back, or I'm not carrying forward
right.
what Yo-Yo has, given me a glimpse of another possible way of living life. And that's when I started an organization in India called Hum. Hum means we, and I call it the power of we. It also stands for harmony, universality, and music. I went to my friends, and with the help of my friends, we started this organization where we found 6 visually impaired children from not so well off families. And literally, I'm very proud to say that, India has the largest number of visually impaired people, but my organization is the first musician run organization does anything about them. We picked 6 little kids
Mm,
and found gurus from them. We sponsor their music instrument, their travel, their gurus fees. Out of those 6, now we have grown to a number of 9. Out of those 6, the very first kid that was, God knows, a little 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. He's now 15 or something like that.
Right.
He's playing tabla. But guess what they were being sent to do? They were, if you are a girl, visually impaired girl, you go and learn sewing at a school. And if you are a male child, you learn how to make candles. This kid is actually playing tabla, and
Wow.
I hope that I'm able to bring him out of India and continue teaching him. And so I'm in conversation with, someone in Berkeley and Boston
Right. You have
Conservatory, if we can find,
mm,
so work something out. So why I'm saying this, it's 100% because of Yo-Yo that I stood up and I felt I need to not be selfish anymore. And people laughed at me. Where is the money going to come from? I'm like Yo-Yo too. Yo-Yo is a very stubborn man. I think I am very stubborn too. When I believe in something, I go for it. And that now when the ISIS crisis hit the world, I spoke with Yo-Yo again. We have friends, musician friends. Also, the Muslim ban happened.
right.
And I and Yo-Yo were constantly talking, and I said, Yo-Yo, we can't just be sitting at home and be frustrated. What should we do? And he said something very beautiful. He said, Sandeep, we are not politicians, we are musicians. Let's make more music. And I started this project called Transcending Borders, one note at a time. And I started working with musicians from Syria. And if you go to my website, you will see, I've worked with a project under that canopy, Delhi to Damascus. Then I got a Guggenheim, the prestigious Guggenheim Fellowship for Delhi to Shiraz. As recently as a couple of months back, I premiered Delhi to Kabul at the Hopkins Center in
Mm,
Dartmouth, where I worked with a female author. She was the last person alive to make it out of the Kabul airport before it was bombed, with her little 7-year-old son. I bumped into her by
mm.
chance in Cambridge, and I heard her story and I met her little son, and I was like, oh my God, what can I do? I started talking. I started talking to people, Professor Ted Levin of Dartmouth and CC Su, from Hopkins Center. They immediately jumped in and said, why don't you bring them here? We will support it. So I asked her to write, reinterpret a very famous novel, by the first Nobel laureate, non-European, non-white Nobel laureate, was Rabindranath Tagore from India. He had written a story called Kabuliwala, about how someone from Kabul comes
Mhm.
and befriends the 6-year-old girl in India. And he becomes very close to her because she's reminding of his daughter that he has left back home in Kabul. It's a very painful story, but amazing story, Kabuliwala. I asked Homera, I said, can you reinterpret it from your lens? And she also, she was able to write a short story. So anyway, without going into details, Delhi to Kabul. I am now very passionate in if I can start Delhi to Oklahoma. So that's
Right.
my
That's
small way of bringing stuff to a different stage. And in a way, who am I? I cannot make a difference. I am very aware I am too small. I am not Yo-Yo Ma, but I feel if I'm able to be the catalyst to bring something up to another level, what happens? I'm also not a person who's focused on results. I am a doer. I believe in jumping off the cliff first and learning to fly, adjusting from my mistakes as I fly, rather than sit and plan and never fly. So,
right.
that.
Play that piece for 28 minutes. I'm in. We'll get it done.
Yeah,
You
let's see.
roll up your
Let's see.
sleeves and you
I,
make it
I
happen.
face that obstacle in the US a lot. I feel people here, especially organizations or people in power, are always very focused at, oh, so what will happen at the end?
Mm,
Will we do this or will this? What is the outcome? And I almost feel I don't know, because my outcome, it will probably happen 50 years from now when I'm not even alive anymore. So, but just because I don't know the exact outcome shouldn't stop me from acting now. And so that's where I am no longer writing a piece of music just for the heck of it. You know, even for this Yo-Yo Silk Road ensemble, they asked me to write a piece last year on something, and I said no. Instead of that, can I write a piece based on something else which had a message?
Right.
So just like, you know, why I love talking to you even before you started recording, everything you are saying, Keith, is who I am, you know. So I almost see you in my, you know, as a reflection of where I am
And
as a human being.
yeah,
That unless, yeah, I can still get up and play a concert anywhere, everywhere in the world, but I am more excited to pack my tablas and go when where there is a meaning, there is a message. And you know, even this tabla concerto that I'm going to play, I don't feel of it as another piece. I feel it's a way. I'm so grateful that the New Hampshire Symphony, you know, and of course my maestro Kalia, you know, they are thinking about it because it's important that we start opening these small windows into the hearts of people who come to listen, as well as musicians. You know, of course, they have played Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart all their lives. That's what they are trained for, and or that's what the audience is used to listening to.
been
But
conditioned to it.
opening those small windows and saying, hey, that's great. But there's another kind of music. There's another kind of musician. And you know, it's also played and appreciated by millions of people around the world. How about this? I think all everything that I mentioned, everything that Yo-Yo is doing, everything, all your podcasts, I think it's an opportunity to expose people to how people are thinking differently, doing things differently, with the hope. Yo-Yo, again, I will take name of Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo once asked me, Keith. It's like when you go and get into a school, or to your point, when you're working with a young kid, what is your goal?
Hmm.
You know, very important questions. Like, so what is your goal, Sandeep? And you know, I'm not a person who thinks too much. I said, yo, it's very simple. I'm not going in there to turn them into a tabla player. I'm not even going there to turn them into a musician. I'm not even going there to turn them into big, you know, music aficionados or connoisseurs. My only hope is that I am leaving them with a very positive experience, so that 10 years from now, 50 years from now, when they are at a, you know, at a juncture in their lives where their decision, what they do at that moment, or what they say at that moment, or how they act at that moment, is going to affect many other people. Hopefully this positive experience will help them take a positive decision. I will die a happy man. And you know, Yo-Yo hugged me. Yo-Yo hugged me
I
and
would
he
do the
said,
same if I were in the same room right now.
he hugged me and he said, that's why I love you. And that's my goal when I'm on stage with the symphony, when you come and listen to me, or any concert, any configuration. I'm not trying to tell you I'm a great musician. I am not. I'm just a lucky musician that met nice people, got love. I'm not trying to tell you this is a great instrument. I'm not trying to tell you this is a great culture. All I'm trying to say is, hey, we are human beings. Enjoy the love. They will see the love, they will see the joy, they will see caring and sharing and respect. And that's what you know, say in my even and own ensemble concerts, that if you have seen love, joy, sharing, caring, respect, just give me your word that you step outside this auditorium and you'll continue sharing it. That's all.
It's a
Sorry, a
beautiful
long answer.
no, it's a beautiful message, and I'm not going to let you. You are humble, thank you, but I'm not going to finish out this conversation without adding a couple of pieces,
Please, please.
because in today's world, there's a single word that the internet would use for that, and it's called empowerment. And
Mhm.
what you've done is you've gotten in front of this young child and I'll tell you about the 8-year-old me that was taught. My first lessons were for piano. And I was awkward and I was uncomfortable, and I'll never forget Mr. Gates because of his influence. He had only one leg because of some accident or illness, so he came on crutches. And he told my mom that he saw tremendous abilities and strengths in me. Fast forward, it wasn't in music and it was not in playing the piano, but that confidence that he saw in how I touched the keys set me on a path that allowed me to be the recipient of what you just said. And that's the strength, I think, that, Sandeep, you bring to the world. It's, you recognize that the music opens doors. It opens ways. I recently wrote an article about the arts as the authoritative voice in this strange time, because you don't need to share a verbal language together. It goes right to the soul in so many cases. And again, when we go back, as we started our conversation, was all about the school and what you're doing with these children, giving them what I'll use now, the word empowerment, to be all that they dream of wanting to be. There's no politics, there's no geography restrictions. The fact that they can take lessons online is very much in keeping with how Communicast started. It can reach all of the right people in the right places at the right time for them. And you're just facilitating, empowering it. So it's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your spending some time with me to do that.
Absolutely.
And, continued success. I think the things you're doing are just so important for the world, and you are doing these things that is helping others find their way. Thank you.
I'm just lucky, I just feel very lucky that, I had the father that I had, then I had the guru that I had. I spent 12 years learning from him by living at his house. He, like what you said, your piano teacher, I keep saying that I was taught of music as a way of life, and then meeting Yo-Yo. And very, very recently, actually, a student of mine, she, I was preparing for a talk, a very prestigious talk somewhere, and I was like, just, random brainstorming, what I should talk about, what I should. She suddenly said, do you realize why you love Yo-Yo so much? And I'm like, no, I don't know. I see so many reasons why I love him. She says, you know what? He's a combination of your father and your guru.
Sure.
And that, for a second, just blew my mind. And I was like, you know what? That's so true, that he's a perfect blend of my father and my guru. And that's why probably I love him so much.
It's a guiding light that's there for you every day. Are you familiar with Pete Seeger, the American folk musician? Okay, right?
Yes.
So for him, it was the banjo. And it was that same type of, this instrument stops whatever it was he was fighting at the time, doesn't matter the issue. He saw it as a tool to rally people around the cause, break through barriers that were artificially set by others. And I'm hearing the same thing with you, and it's fun. I mean, these are the things that make these kinds of sessions great, because
thank you so
do
much.
good work, and it's the concert's important. The concert will be successful. People will be touched, but there's so much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. One other thing, I just as a thought, because you're based in Boston, I came to this conversation also with some thoughts in mind. I won't call them preconceived notions, but I worked in the startup world in Kendall Square for a number of years. And so I'm very familiar with the Cambridge Innovation Center, TIE Boston, so the Indus entrepreneurs. They were there. I met Desh Deshpande at the very beginning of my tenure down in that area. And again, all of the kinds of people who care about others, who bootstrap that next generation into it. The youth program inside of TIE Boston had these kids in there at 8 o'clock Saturday mornings, going through setting up businesses, being given a $25 grant to start something. And if it went somewhere, somebody put $500 or $1,000 behind it to let them see what they could do. And so when you talk about your impact, I know you're humble, and your humility speaks volumes. You're also sitting at what I consider ground zero of the technology to human connection. And so as you want to have impact, and as you see those things, because yes, play that 28-minute piece and I will immediately fit right in, and you can do that. Your comfort level of dealing with change and things thrown at you, there's a whole community of people that may not figure out the music part, but they will get the entrepreneurial side of you. And so you've got a huge support network outside of where you think you might be. And I'm happy to connect at any point on those things. They're
Lovely.
fun. They're fun for me too.
That's so beautiful, like, so I have, been invited, like, for example, I used to teach a course at the Harvard Ed School called Passion Driven Learning.
Yes.
And when I was approached the first time, I was like, what am I going to teach at Harvard? And Professor Steve Seidel and Yo-Yo convinced me to just be myself.
Yes.
They said, just be yourself and you'll be fine. I'm like, yeah, but what am I going to teach Harvard students? It's like, you don't have to teach anything. Just be yourself. And Professor
Absolutely.
Steve, paired himself with me. And for 4 or 5 years, we did that. And I was very proud that my class with Steve Seidel was always voted the favorite of the students. And so I totally get what you are saying. Like, I have given talks at the Harvard Business School or schools all around. I know this professor who I love, like my older brother, Professor Jerry Toomer. He's invited me many times to the Butler School, in Indiana, and he's written a book actually called Catalyst Effect.
Yes.
Where he has written about me, and he's interviewed the coach of the Boston Celtics and all that. So he's turned into like my older brother. And same thing, like when first he approached me, I was like not sure what am I going to talk. And Jerry is like, he's a sweetheart. Anyway, I can't stop talking about him too. And he's like, Sandeep, just talk about yours, how you learn music, what you do, people will get it. So yeah, so I totally get what you are saying, and I will be in touch with you. Absolutely.
Good. Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate your time. I'm going to end the recording.
Thank you, Keith.